Hey girls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's vlog is going to be the Trans Rights Readathon reading vlog. This year the Trans Rights Readathon goes from today, Friday, March the 21st through Monday, March the 31st, and this is a readathon that is not only dedicated to reading books but also encouraging readers to have conversations and spark those conversations and lead to a change and to encourage people to take action. The Trans Rights Readathon was created as a call to action and a call to inspire readers, the reading community, to celebrate and acknowledge the Trans Day of Visibility, which is March 31st. There are three big keywords for this readathon, and those are kind of the goals of the readathon, and that is to uplift, amplify, and also support. This readathon is encouraging readers to seek out works by and or about trans authors, non-binary authors, two-spirit authors, or any gender non-conforming authors or characters, while also taking action on the personal, the community, and the federal level. All this information, by the way, that I'm talking about is on the Trans Rights Readathon Instagram page, which I will be linking down below. I just think it's really important to talk about some of these things before getting into the reading vlog. So the first tenet of the goals of this readathon is to amplify, of course. So that means to read, support, review, and spotlight works by and or about trans, non-binary, two-spirit, and gender non-conforming authors and characters. So that one, very much like a typical readathon for YouTube or Instagram, read some good books. The second actionable item is uplift. So that is not only to be reading these books, but to make content about these books. So whether you are a YouTuber and you're making a video or making a post, and this is not to say you have to be a content creator, even if you don't have like any sort of bookstagram or anything, but you're still reading along, it's really great to get some of these titles out there and being talked about. As someone who used to work at a library, I can say, based on my own experience and seeing the experiences of my colleagues and peers, the books that are challenged the most are books that are, number one, by trans authors or have any sort of trans or non-gender conforming main character. That's the number one subject matter that people were requesting the library get rid of books by, and not even books that had trans authors or trans characters. It was even down to children's books about a cis boy who wanted to wear a skirt. Any sort of gender non-conforming, anything that rallied against gender stereotypes and a very cis-hetero world was challenged and demonized. So it's really important to keep reading these books, to talk about these books in the context of a year where book banning is becoming more prevalent than ever before and is trying to be enforced by the federal government. Reading these books, reading these banned books are really important, and encouraging people that, of course, books like 1984 are very popular. They are still on a lot of book bans list, but by now I feel like books like that, everyone's heard of 1984. Some of these books by authors of color and by queer authors, especially trans authors, are not getting that kind of publicity, and it can be hard if you're placed on a book ban to get your work out there. So that's another reason why we want to talk about these books and post about these books, to get them in the hands of more readers. And then the third action item and tenet of this readathon is support. So participants are encouraged to monetarily support the trans community, supporting mutual aid, Ask Mutual Aid funds, organizations, GoFundMes, creating a fundraiser, attending a fundraiser, collaborating with other readers to raise money. And I know we, at least in the US, we are speeding along towards a recession. Money may be tight for a lot of us. So if you cannot donate monetarily, maybe share some of those links in your Instagram stories or on your Facebook, sharing those links. Or maybe you know a small business near you, or even like a local trans creator or someone that has like a small business run on Etsy or Instagram or something, like using what you have to uplift those businesses, support support those businesses, maybe purchasing like a work of art or a book by one of these trans authors or creatives. And if you can't do any of that, if you don't have the financial means to do any monetarily support, again, share those links and also call your congresspeople. So just to give you all an example of one of the things that I am doing to support the trans community, and this is a way that you can support them even if you don't have the financial means, you can call your representatives. Check the legislation that is being passed both at your state and at the federal level, and call and make your voice known. I live in Arkansas, and this legislative session, Republican lawmakers just introduced a bill that would allow lawsuits against anyone who facilitates a minor's social transition, including hairdressers and barbers who give minors gender non-conforming haircuts. So this is what I'm going to be doing today. I will say the only good thing that has come out of this administration is that I have gotten over my phone anxiety, because things like the 5 Calls app make it really easy for me to call my representatives pretty much every single day. I've been trying to make at least one email or one phone call a day, because there's no shortage of horrible things that are happening. But this is one thing that I am doing today to call and protest, because this is not good legislation. I can't speak for other states, but I can speak from Arkansas's perspective that there are so many other things that we need to be focusing on rather than this. Trans kids are not hurting anybody. The real things that are hurting kids in Arkansas is the poverty rate and the literacy rate and the violence rates in Arkansas. Those are all things we can focus on to help give kids a better life than preventing them from living as who they are. So that is what I am going to be doing today for my support action. Let's talk about the books, because this is also a book readathon. So let's talk about the books. The first book that I have on the TBR is All the Hearts You Eat by Hailey Piper. I have read a lot of things by Hailey Piper before, and I really like her blend of body horror, cosmic weirdness. I'm not a huge fan of cosmic horror, but whatever Hailey Piper is doing, I tend to enjoy. She is my go-to author when I recommend cosmic horror, and I'm really excited about this one. This is a lot chunkier than the other books that I've read from her, and I think it's small town, creepy town, weird things are happening in a town, so I definitely want to read this one. She also has another book coming out later this year. It's something in yellow. It's got a really cool cover. I will pop it up right here. I think it's a play on a Lovecraft story, maybe. I don't know, but the cover is absolutely gorgeous, and I'll definitely be checking that one out later this year. But for now, we have All the Hearts You Eat. I also have Sundown in San Ojuela by M.M. Olivas, and this one, I don't really know. First of all, this one, I saw it at the library. I saw the cover and I was drawn to the cover. It's such a cool little concept. I don't know if it's like a monster, some sort of paranormal thing going on. We're following a main character who goes back to her childhood home, and she has a chance to make peace with a dark history. And this one also actually might be cosmic. It says Liz expects to meet ghosts in San Ojuela, but she's not prepared for the terrifying ancient gods who stalk its desolate landscape. So potentially another cosmic horror, which I'm intrigued by. I know I just said I'm not usually one for cosmic horror, but you know, it's always good to sample a subgenre. Maybe that's not your favorite every once in a while, just to see if there are exceptions to that rule, and the cover on this one is super cool. We also have Smothermoss by Alisa Alering, and this one takes place in the 1980s, and it's about 2 sisters in Appalachia. Really been loving Appalachian horror this year, so I'm definitely excited to check it out. This cover also just gives like spring horror to me. And then last but not least, moving away from horror and into fantasy, I have the next book in a Dark and Hollow Star series. This is the third book, and it's A Grim and Sunken Vow by Ashley Shuttleworth, and I love this series. What happened at the end of book 2, I'm still so shaken by, and I just know that this one is going to be very, very dark, and I can't wait, but I can wait. I've been putting this one off because I have a fun reader quirk that when I love a series, I never want it to end, so I keep putting it off, but I feel like this would be a really great opportunity to finish the series. So I do have this one, and I do also have book 4 if I read it and want to continue. Book 4 is quite a bit shorter than this one, but I have heard this one gets very dark, and I'm nervous. I'm nervous for our main characters. It's an urban fantasy about the Fae. It also has like Greek mythology elements as well. So if you're looking for a fantasy recommendation, I really do love A Dark and Hollow Star. It's probably my favorite new adult fantasy series, and I haven't even finished the series yet, but that is the TBR for this week. I'm really excited to dive into these books and read some great literature this week. So I'm gonna go get to reading. I will check back in later with a reading update. So I am now 35% of the way into All the Hearts You Eat by Hailey Piper, and the only regret that I have when picking this book up for this readathon is that if I wasn't reading this for this specific vlog, I probably would have put it down and waited until summer, because this is the perfect summer horror. It takes place in a like coastal town, and this town is one where it really relies on tourist income during the summer. It's a very small town that's a destination location, and we're following a number of locals in this town, and just the vibes of this one, the setting, it takes place in the summer, it's got this coastal town feeling, and it really is delving into water and the coastline and islands as symbols and imagery in here. So this is just the perfect summer horror read. So if you are interested in this one, I would hold off until the summer because it's a great summer horror. But that is not a complaint that I have about this one, but I am really enjoying it. So at the very beginning of this story, we are following character Ivory. She's one of our main characters. She is going for a swim off the coast, and she discovers a dead body of a young woman named Cabrina Bright. Ivory does not know this young woman. They're different generations. They don't run in like the same friend groups, friend circles at all, but Ivory feels like a very strange connection to this dead body. She doesn't know why. She finds a note by the body, and it seems to be not quite a suicide note, but a poem that may have foreshadowed Cabrina's death. And this death is one that it turns out it's a little bit ambiguous, because Cabrina's body was found on the beach. So people in this town, and there's a lot of gossip and talk and rumors about it, people in this town don't know if it was an accident, like a swimming accident gone wrong, or a suicide, or potentially a murder. So Ivory sees this body. She's one of the people at the beach that discovers Cabrina's body, and she finds, of course, this note that potentially could be a suicide note or could just be a piece of poetry. It's very ambiguous, and she feels very haunted by this encounter, both just emotionally, and then she starts seeing what she thinks is the ghost of Cabrina appearing to her. So she starts to wonder if maybe there's more to this death that is going on, and that maybe Cabrina is trying to get Ivory to help solve this mystery. We also follow Cabrina's best friends, Z and Rex. And Cabrina and Z and Rex, they are all 18 and 19 years old. They are getting ready to kind of go their separate ways, and Z and Rex are struggling with the death of their friend and losing someone who is so important to them. them, and they're also really wrestling with the fact of Cabrina's legacy, because Cabrina was trans, and her mother does not respect that. That was a conflict with that family while Cabrina was still alive, and so they are grieving their friend, and it feels like a lot of the town is grieving someone else who never existed. The first time we really get to see Rex and Z is they are, as Cabrina's mother would say, defacing Cabrina's tombstone, because Cabrina's dead name is written on the tombstone. So they're not only having to deal with grief with the loss of their friend, but also the fact that Cabrina's legacy is being turned into something, and someone who she wasn't. So they're struggling with that. They also start seeing Cabrina's ghost, and they want to help her, but as they let Cabrina's ghost in, they start to worry that it may not be Cabrina, and that Cabrina was maybe mixed up with something very ghostly paranormal that is happening in this small town. And it's so interesting, the different points of view in here. We're also getting snippets from Cabrina's diary, and that is all you see of Cabrina, because it doesn't really flash back to show her when she was living. She's dead for this entire story, but you get these snippets of her diary entries that really make her come to life, and also make you wonder what was going on right before she died. And I think this is such an interesting, first of all, like paranormal mystery. We have a group of people, and I do want to point out, just like the author Hailey Piper, all of our main characters are trans. So they are dealing with the grief and the death of a loved one in their community. Even people like Ivory, when she discovers this, she feels a sense of kinship for someone who very well could have been her as a younger adult. So they are suffering with the loss of someone in their community, and then having to deal with the fact that not only like what happened to Cabrina, but who was Cabrina, because all of these people have very different notions of who she was, and that influences like what they think happened to her with her death. So it's very interesting dissecting that, because both Ivory and Cabrina's friends, they want to try and figure out the mystery of what is going on, what happened, but they're coming at it from very, very different angles, and then just kind of exploring, just in a small town, someone's legacy, and when you die, like what you leave behind. Delilah S. Dawson actually blurbs on the back of this book that it's tragic but triumphant. This is Stephen King's It for a new generation, and I can definitely see that, because we are following a group of people in a small town during the summertime horror, where there's something not quite right about this town. There's something sinister and paranormal, and only a specific group of people can really see that rot that is underneath. So I'm very intrigued. Something was just introduced that I'm really intrigued and interested by, the direction, the paranormal direction that this one is going in. So far so good, really enjoying it. It's a great summer horror, and I'm gonna go get to reading more. I will check back in later with another reading update. Hey vlog, just a quick little update here. I am still reading and enjoying All the Hearts You Eat by Hailey Piper. However, I do have a library hold that needs to be returned to the library within the next 2 days. So I do need to switch up my reading a little bit. I need to start in on Smothermoss. This one's due at the library. I want to read it before I have to return it. So this is by Alisa Alering. So just a little bit of a swap. I am still going to be finishing this book in this vlog, don't worry, but I'm just gonna switch over to this book to finish it before I have to return this one to the library, because when I do that, I'll have to be put back on hold, and I don't know when I will be able to get a chance to read this book again. So I am going to go start in on this one. This is just a very short little update clip, just letting y'all know my little change in reading plans. I'm gonna go get to reading. I'll check back in later with another update. This is probably going to be another very short and sweet update, but I am about 20% of the way into Smothermoss. I wanted to give one note, and that is the author's name is pronounced Alisa, not Alyssa, which is what I think I was saying before. So Alisa Alering, and I'm enjoying this one so far. I'm actually filming 2 different vlogs at the same time right now, and it's kind of funny that I now have 2 very botanical horrors going on at the same time. This one is definitely, it has a lot of lush atmosphere and description. It takes place in Appalachia and like a mountain, very rural community within the Appalachian forests and mountains, and I'm enjoying that setting. It's definitely a little bit slow to build up, even though the inciting incident has happened. We're still focusing more on our main characters, so I think this is like kind of tagged as both fantasy a little bit and then also horror, but the horror elements really haven't kicked in yet. It's just really setting up this lush and very descriptive atmosphere. So it takes place in the 1980s, and we are following 2 sisters. We're following Sheila and Angie, and they live with their mother and their grandma's sister, and they are very poor. They're scraping to make ends meet. They live off the land, and they are a lot more poor than their peers, especially going to school. So we're diving a little bit into both Sheila and Angie and the different ways in which they survive or deal with being such an outsider and such a target at their school. So we have these sisters that are just trying to get by because they do live off the land and they are very self-sufficient. Their family is self-sufficient, raising and catching and growing pretty much all of the food that they consume. They are really in sync with the forest and the mountains, and the big inciting incident in this book is that 2 female hikers get murdered by someone on the mountain, and this ends up being really close to where this family lives. And we are going to start to see these 2 sisters kind of get entangled in this investigation, not because they're involved in any way, but because it took place really close to their house, and they're always constantly in the forest, in the mountains, and they think that's a safe place. It's a place they're really familiar with, but there might be dangers other than the natural predators that live in the surrounding area. So far so good. Definitely very atmospheric. We're really building up a sense of these sisters and who they are. They're very, very different. Sheila is the oldest, and she feels like very parentified. She has to take care of her little sibling and also their grandmother figure as well. She is struggling with growing up and feelings of desire in a whole lot of different ways, and hunger and just craving more out of life than what she has been given. And she's really trying to take care of her little sister Angie, who she loves but is kind of a misfit and odd duck in her own way. Angie creates these cards, these monster cards, and I think something a little bit magical is happening with these cards, but Angie will create these kind of like her own tarot cards, and she feels called to draw them, and sometimes they correlate with things that are happening. And Angie has these wonderful, like, she has a wonderful imagination, and she plays pretend and has all of these scenarios and daydreams as she's exploring the forest. And where I have left off, she has found something that she thinks could be relevant to the investigation. She tells the police think she's just making stuff up because she's about 12 years old and they don't feel she's that reliable of a source, and that she's treating it like a game. So that makes me a little bit nervous that we have these 2 sisters in such an isolated setting, and there's definitely a horrible man on the loose. So definitely intrigued by this one so far. What I did want to point out is that at the start of every chapter, we have a little creature drawing, and those are the creatures that Angie creates on her cards. So this is definitely a very beautiful book. I love the cover, and then I love those illustrations. Like, every single chapter has a different creature on the chapter header. So far so good. I'm enjoying the southern mountain mountain gothic feels of this one, so definitely will be reading more of it because I am enjoying it, but I also do have to finish this one before I have to return it to the library. So I am now 70% of the way into Smothermoss, and this one's just going okay so far. It's definitely more of like a folk horror, folk fantasy, and on Storygraph, and I'm sure on Goodreads as well, this is genre tagged as a horror and a thriller, and I think especially if someone saw that this was a thriller and picked it up, that they'd be really disappointed, because on the back of this book, the synopsis, it starts off with talking about this murder of two hikers that happen on the mountain really close by to our two main protagonists' home, and that event seems like it's a lot more important in the story than it is so far. It still is important, but it feels just like another like background event that has happened for these two girls, and I'm not saying that that's not true to life, because when a tragedy happens in a community, obviously day-to-day life still needs to happen, and because these girls are so young, 17 and 12, they have other priorities maybe that they're putting above thinking about this event. So while this event does happen in the book and we get a chapter that is dedicated to the mountain witnessing that event, it's really not like a priority in this story, which is fine, but I'm not really sure like what we're going to get by the end of this one in terms of any sort of conclusion or even explanation of some of the things that are happening, because the story feels like it's very rooted in reality. It's very true to life, but then we have little sprinkles of magical realism in there, and I don't know if any of those are going to be explained in any sort of way, which I don't mind. Like, I don't mind an ambiguous ending, but I do want, if there is going to be an ambiguous ending, I need enough in the text where I can say at the end, this is what I feel happened because of what happened in the book. I feel like this one, we're not even going to get any sort of like clues or hints or ideas maybe of what those things are. I think some of these elements, you just have to accept that they exist. The mountain is a point of view in here. It gets just like a couple of 1 to 2 page chapters, so it's not the main protagonist or main point of view or anything, but I do like those chapters. But obviously that kind of has this magical realism tone, and then also we have things like Sheila has this cord around her neck, this rope around her neck that she keeps describing that is a little bit more than a metaphor. There's something magical going on with that, and Angie's cards and the way that they kind of interact with the different characters in the story and feel like they have a mind of their own. I don't think any of those elements are going to be explained, which is okay. It's fine. This one is just, it's going okay for me. And I do want to give some big trigger warnings for this one when it comes to our main character. Sheila is going through a lot. She's exploring her identity and what it means to maybe have romantic feelings for another girl in her grade. And we're also kind of, she has this, like I just mentioned, this rope around her neck that she feels is suffocating her, and it feels like a metaphor, but then also some characters can see and interact with this rope in this story. So it's a little bit more than that, but it's this constant feeling of pressure, and she has a very, very disordered relationship with eating, and that has a lot of page time in here. So that's a little difficult to read. That's not necessarily something that's like an automatic DNF trigger for me, but it is one that I have to kind of tread lightly around, which I can fully understand why when I'm saying I'm not loving this one, it's probably just based on personal reasons with how prevalent that is in this story. All Sheila's point of view chapters deal very heavily with her whole entire day. Her whole entire thought process heavily revolves around food and the difficult and harmful attitudes and views that she has towards food. So if you are going to pick this one up, just know that. So 70% 50% of the way in, I don't know if this is going to be a book that has a whole lot of traditional resolution, which obviously that rings true to life. Not every life story, not every person's life story has a happy ending or even like a definitive resolution, whether that be if you are looking at a crime that has occurred in this book to the two female hikers, or if you're just looking at someone's life story. It's not necessarily, there's not like, we don't all, because we're not characters in a book, we don't have a resolution or like a tidy plot structure that hits plot beats. So this very much feels like true to life. It's a slow character study and with like slight sprinkles of folk fantasy. Definitely could call this folklore as well, but definitely be warned if you're going into this expecting like that murder and that investigation element to be a big part of this story. It is not. I am enjoying the character examinations in here, and I just have to kind of adjust my expectations based on what the blurb of this book, not even the blurb, there's a long synopsis on the back of this book, and I just have to adjust my expectations for what I thought this story was and what it's turning out to be. So I am going to finish this later on today. It's a shorter one. This is about 250 pages total, so I will be wrapping this up and then I'll give you all my thoughts later when I finish this very character study reflective folk horror. Actually, before I end out this clip, I was definitely meaning to there, but before I end out this clip, I do want to encourage y'all with another action item that you can take, because this readathon is not only about reading books, but doing actions and supporting your community and making a change within your community. So action item for today, I want you to go on Instagram, on Facebook, on any social media platforms and find the page for your local Pride event and see if they need any help. And I know like I'm filming this vlog and it's going throughout an entire week, so I keep saying today's action item and implying that you're watching this throughout the span of several days, and I know that's not the case when you are watching content versus making content. So I'm just giving you several different ideas of how to maybe today, after you finish watching this video, do an action item and then just even continue that on throughout the year. But this was brought to my attention because I was on Instagram this morning and I saw the community, one of the neighborhoods in my area that I follow on social media, posted about their Pride event, and they posted, and this is a quote from their page: "You may have seen the recent news about Anheuser-Busch pulling out of St. Louis Pride. San Francisco Pride has also lost about $300,000 in sponsorships. To be honest, our Pride is facing similar challenges. After a successful inaugural year backed by incredible community support, we've lost a few major funding sources. We're still working hard to make Pride even bigger and better, and we need your help to bridge the gap. We need your support between now and June 7th. Every contribution, big or small, makes a difference. Together we are building a stronger and more vibrant community." So just go ahead and check your, it could be like a Pride page, like a page dedicated to Pride in your community, or even like I just follow this neighborhood that puts on a Pride, see if they need anything, because unfortunately we are seeing a trend of corporate sponsors that have sponsored community events for years and years and years pull their support, which makes these events happen. So see if, number one, you can give any sort of donation, big or small. It could even be something like $1. I mean, it's the thought that counts, you as an individual investing in your community. If you cannot, because times are tough, see if they need any volunteers, because if you can't, you know, donate any money, see if you can volunteer your time. I have been to several prides and they're all a lot of fun, and it's really fun to obviously participate in the events of the day, but it's even more fun seeing a community come together. So just do a check-in on your community and see if they need any help with Pride this year. So that is an action that I am going to be taking today. I would encourage you all to do the same, but I'm going to go get to reading and I will check back in later with another update to the vlog. So I finished Smothermoss. I returned it to the library this morning, so I'll throw a graphic up here for y'all to look at the cover because it is quite the stunning cover, but this one just fell a little bit flat for me. The writing was absolutely gorgeous and I would read another book by this author, but the execution for this one just fell a little bit flat. I'd definitely say, like, for your expectations, get rid of like the thriller and maybe some of the horror expectations and go in with more of the expectations that this is a dark folk fantasy. Definitely feels like a dark folkloric tale, and just some of the little magical things that were introduced, I just felt like a lot of balls were dropped by the end, and when everything wrapped up, not enough things wrapped up to make this like a satisfying conclusion to a story for me. So unfortunately I didn't love this one, but now that I am finished with it, I will be diving back into the Hailey Piper. Again, I'm about the 45 to 50% mark of this one, really enjoying it, so definitely will be reading this one throughout this weekend. We are coming up on the last couple of days of this readathon, and when I was at the library today returning some books, including Smothermoss, and then picking up some holds, I did get a book in that I would love to fit in for this readathon. I don't know if I will be because there's just only a couple days more left of this readathon, but if I get the chance to after the Hailey Piper, I would like to check this book out. Sisters of the Last Nation by Medina. This was actually a book I heard about because of the Trans Rights Readathon Instagram page. It was one of their recommendations, so definitely I would love to read this one either for this readathon or very soon. This is another like really striking cover. It honestly kind of reminds me a little bit of Smothermoss's cover. It looks like both were like those wood stamps that you paint and then press upon paper. Just the woodcut stamp artistry of this cover and then Smothermoss's cover are really, really stunning. So yeah, that's the reading plan for this weekend. A little ambitious, but I like a challenge. So I'm going to go get to reading. I'll check back in later with another update. Good morning, friends. Today is the very last full day of the Trans Rights Readathon, and I have finished All the Hearts Who Eat by Hailey Piper, and I really, really enjoyed this one. This is my favorite Hailey Piper so far. I think it's this one, and then Queen of Teeth is my second favorite. I loved the small town horror, the atmosphere, the characters, the ending also I thought had a great blend between like a cosmic, unexplained, magical sort of climax and conclusion, and then also had a lot of heart and just really, really nailed the ending. Really enjoyed this one. I would recommend you pick it up in the summer. This would be a great horror beach read because so much of it does take place on a coastline, but this was a lot of fun. I actually feel very matchy with it today because I've got the orange hair and blue shirt, and it's got orange and blue as well, but I did really enjoy this one. I will say, like, towards the beginning of this book when I was reading, the biggest not like complaint, but the biggest issue that I had was that I was unsure of where Ivory fit within the narrative. I understood that she felt a connection to Cabrina and was investigating, but just some of her character choices, I was kind of confused why we were following her, and I just felt like Rex and Z were a lot more interesting to follow and interesting characters, and it gets explained in the end why that is so, and I really enjoyed the devolution of from beginning to end this very small town that's harboring some secrets and is very idyllic. Nothing bad ever happens to this town, and then at the end when things just really go down, I really, really liked all of the horror elements in here, the creature, the cosmic creature elements. I really enjoyed this. This is yet another book that I have read this year or that I'm interested in reading this year that has like hunger as a theme. Hunger-based horror is having a moment. This came out last year, but a lot of books this year as well have had just like hunger and craving, and especially like exploring like female rage. Hunger has been going hand in hand with a lot of that. And Hailey Piper's books in particular just have a lot of teeth to them, have a lot of teeth, have a lot of bite, and they are in the story physically, but symbolism in horror as well. I think she does a really great job of that. So highly enjoyed this one. I'm really glad that I managed to finish it. I know we took a pause in the middle of the vlog, but I did finish now the second book for this readathon. And I actually finished that book yesterday, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to read next in the readathon. So I did try a chapter of two of the books that I had on my TBR that I wanted to prioritize, and I read a chapter of A Grim and Sunken Vow, and then I also read a chapter of Sisters of the Lost Nation, and I had a feeling that I was going to want to read this one when I picked it up from the library, but I am just not in a fantasy mood at the moment. I'm just really craving like horror and even like mystery thrillers as well, so I'm gonna go with this one. So I've read only a chapter, but I am very intrigued. I have a lot of time to read today, so I'll definitely see how far I can get in this one. And I will say, even though I am not in the fantasy mood, I was really intrigued by the first chapter of this one. So immediately, as soon as I get back into craving reading a fantasy book, I am going to be picking up this book because I liked the first chapter a whole lot, and I've been meaning to finish this series. I'm just not in a mood for fantasy, so I will be reading this book hopefully soon, but I am going to go get to reading, and I will check back in tomorrow to conclude this vlog. So it is now officially the end of the Trans Rights Readathon, and I did end up finishing Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina, and I did not finish this during the readathon. I got about 50 to 60% of the way into it, and this was just such an engaging read that I just wanted to keep reading, so I did. I ended up finishing it really early on the 1st, so this is technically my first read of April, and it was such a great way to start out the month because I really enjoyed this one. So this is, as the title suggests, another book about sisters. That is a theme that I am so drawn towards in not even just horror, but in general, the themes of sisters or even the themes of sibling relationships. Those are ones that I really love exploring, and I really loved this book. However, I do wish that this book didn't have to exist because this is dealing with the epidemic, the MMIW epidemic, the missing or murdered Indigenous women and girls. There is an author's note in here that talks about this epidemic and goes over a lot of the different reasons why this is. So as not to paraphrase, I am going to read directly from the author's note, and it says that records from the National Crime Information Center indicate that more than 5,200 Indigenous women and girls were missing as of 2021. The actual number, however, could be much higher. And it's not only abduction with which Indigenous women and girls are forced to contend. The NCIC also found that in some counties, Indigenous women face a murder rate that's more than 10 times the national average. So this is a very real problem in the United States, and our main character, Anna, has always known this, but it really becomes even a deeper problem in her life when it hits very close to home when her little sister Grace goes missing. So we're following Anna and her tribe, the Dakota people. Actually, also in the author's note, the author mentions that this is a tribe that he made up. The author does talk about why he decided to create his own tribe in this story, and I think that's really impactful when you pick this up to read. So I will leave that for him to explain, but Anna is a part of this tribe, and the community is becoming slowly bigger as this tribe has created a casino that is bringing in a lot of money to the reservation. This is also where Anna works. She's a high school senior and she is saving up money by working shifts as a cleaner. From the beginning of this book, you see that Anna is struggling with a lot. She is one of the only Native children to go to her high school. She is the subject of a lot of bullying, having to deal with the fact that she is so different, not just because she is Native, but also because this book was recommended as a book for the Trans Rights Readathon because it does have a two-spirit main character. So Anna is navigating her identity and she's trying to figure out things about herself, and that can be a struggle. This book is set in the 1990s, so her peers clock that something is different about her, and the bullying that she endures is merciless. And so she has all of that going on. She's working at this hotel. She's also the oldest sibling and takes care of her younger siblings and feels a very strong responsibility towards them. So as we get further into this book, Anna starts worrying about her sister Grace, who is sneaking out of the house at night and maybe being involved in some people and some situations that Anna doesn't think is best for her sister. They have a relationship that was once really strong, but it's kind of fracturing as the two of them are in high school. And then when Grace disappears, Anna wants to drop everything and figure out what happened to her because she is not the first woman or girl to go missing from their tribe. And as Anna is working in the casino, she starts to realize that there might be things happening in the casino that is connected to the disappearances of all these women and girls. And Anna feels like she has to figure out all of these clues on her own because of the myriad ways in which jurisdiction and local law enforcement don't care about these missing women and girls, and they just claim that they're runaways even if there is evidence that suggests that's not the case. So Anna is trying to find her sister and trying to go up against a corrupt system, and also really trying to figure out and explore more about herself and her identity. I just really liked this one, a mystery thriller that was very fast-paced and just really engaging. One thing about this book that took me a little bit to get used to is that the first 50% of this book kind of jumps back and forth in time. So you see Grace and Anna and like the timeline before she disappeared, and then we jump to when Grace has disappeared. So we go back and forth a lot in the first 40% of this, and then at some point we stop and then it's just a continuous consecutive narrative. So that took a little bit of getting used to. However, I do think it did a great job of building up the stakes and keeping this book very entertaining, very readable. This is a very excellently paced book, and I really like the blend. It has a perfect balance of character development and then also plot development as well. Really enjoyed this one. The representation was great, which is why I wanted to pick this up, because I've never read a book with a two-spirit main character. However, even like outside of those representation elements, this was such a great mystery thriller. It also has like some paranormal, some folklore horror elements as well, but I really enjoyed this and I am just so excited to read more by this author. I have a feeling that this could be a new auto read thriller horror author for me, so that is going to be it for this readathon. I definitely had a lot of fun participating. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!